them sit up there, we know that's not the place to go. Or if the preacher's preaching that all you got to do is believe in Jesus and you go to heaven, that's a place we don't want to go. We got to judge that. So we have to do that.
On a personal level, on a personal level, the Bible condemns us judging one another, especially when we're doing the very same things that we're condemning someone else for. That's the whole thrust of Romans chapter 1 and 2. You're not in a position to condemn someone when you are, to one degree or another, doing the very same thing that you're condemning them for.
Right.
You'll be judged by what measure you judge something.
Yeah, we can't be doing the same things that we're judging people for. Okay, chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 at verse 1. So he had just said in this letter, and the rest I will set in order when I come. Now, concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I don't want you to be ignorant, or I do not want you to be ignorant. You know that you were Gentiles, carried away to these dumb idols, however you were led. Therefore, I make known to you that no one speaking by the Holy or by the Spirit of God calls Jesus accursed, and no one can say that Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. Now understand, when he uses the term dumb, well, it means those that do not talk. Though, that's pretty dumb to follow that if you ask me, but that's what he's referring to here. And then in verse 3, he goes down and says, therefore I make known to you that no one speaking by the Spirit of God calls Jesus accursed, and no one can say that Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. So when Jesus left the earth, he told his apostles that he was going to send the Holy Spirit to guide them, and he did that. So the disciples were given this gift of the Holy Spirit. They were able to do the things that they needed to do to carry on the ministry. And the true disciples used those gifts in a proper way, but some didn't. So here Paul is contrasting and comparing those folks' former lives with their current lives in hopes that they would see the advantages that they have now as Christians, as followers of Christ, because they were ignorant before. Not stupid, but just unlearned. They were ignorant in a former life. In that Gentile life, they were ignorant, and it was an evil life that they were living. And Paul wanted them to know that the Spirit of God instructs, teaches, and leads people out of that idolatry, and into the knowledge of Jesus. Those idols that don't even talk can't do that. They can't lead anything because all they do is be there. They can't guide. They can't point. They can't speak. They can't say, look here. They can't say, read this. It's just something made up by man or used by man that cannot do anything but be there. So Paul is comparing their old life with their new life, and the idols with the Holy Spirit and with what God has given them. And he's saying, you remember how you were as Gentiles, and now you remember how you are as Christians. Remember what you did when you were following those idols. Now you're following Christ, and you are fully following God, and so you have the Holy Spirit. And Paul didn't want anybody led by the Spirit to do things wrong, to do it improperly, just as Jesus didn't. His point was so that one led by the Spirit will not be able to say that Jesus is accursed, or that that Jesus was a source of evil. And only those who are truly disciples would not do that. And only those who are truly disciples would call Jesus the Son of God. An idol can't call Jesus anything.
That's not,
What a contrast there.
Right.
Like black and
Yep.
white.
I don't want to get ahead of it too far. In chapter 12 really about hell, which sets up chapter 13. He's using spiritual gifts in this context. And by the way, these gifts that are enumerated in this chapter are the basis for a lot of false doctrine in the world today, in particular the charismatic movement.
Mm-hmm.
They perverted the term grace, the word gift, spiritual gifts. They appropriated that term to mean that they have these particular gifts. But what Paul's setting forth in chapter 12 in particular is the unity of the Spirit. And he points to the self-same Spirit, the self-same Lord. Notice how many times he points that these gifts emanate from the Spirit, God the Father, and the Lord Jesus Christ are one. So you can't separate. So, I think Ephesians chapter 4 really parallels what he's pointing to. There is one Spirit, one body, and so forth. One God. He's trying to get them to see, even though you have these gifts, they come from the Spirit. You can't separate them from God the Father and God the Son. And what they're doing, they're trying to outshine one another. They had different gifts. Tongues was kind of low on the totem pole. And they were using that to outshine one another as creative consummation. He's trying to get them to focus on the unity of the Spirit. And the only way you can be united is to love one another, to have care for one another. And that sets up chapter 13. And he goes, though I have the tongues of angels and such forth, if I have not love, I'm nothing. And then really, but chapter 12, 13, and 14 really need to be taken together.
Yeah, he took the words right out of my mouth,
Every single one of them?
almost. As I alluded earlier, man separated this letter into chapters
Right.
and verses. I think two different men, but anyway, they separated it into chapters and verses, and sometimes you lose track of that. If you ask somebody, almost anybody that knows anything about Christianity, how would you describe chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians? Oh, that's the love chapter. Well, as Randy said, you got to take, starting with verse 1 of chapter 12 and ending about with verse 2 of chapter 14, something like that. It all goes together, okay? Chapter 13 is just as much about gifts as chapter 12 is.
Right.
But he's speaking to Gentiles there.
Mm-hmm.
Not Jews, but Gentiles. But
Right. So, to set this part up, Paul is confirming or affirming that there are people who take these gifts and use them properly, and there are people who have these gifts that use them improperly for self-gain and things like that. You may remember Simon. He used a gift improperly, and then he was told about it, and he was repentant, seemingly, at that particular point, because he used it improperly, and he said, you need to pray about that.
I hate to correct the teacher.
Sure you do.
As far as I know, Simon didn't have any gifts. What he tried to do was to buy the power of bestowing the gifts from the apostles. Okay? Peter and John came down and laid their hands on people, and they received the Holy Spirit and got gifts at the same time. And it says when Simon saw that through the laying on the apostles' hands the spirits were given, he offered them money that he might have that power. And so I don't even know if Simon ever had a gift.
Well, Simon wasn't.
He was a sorcerer.
We would call him an illusionist.
Yeah.
Illusionist, right.
And he saw an opportunity to really improve his skills, and he offered money to buy that power, not to buy a gift but to by the power of bestowing gifts.
Right.
And that's one of the, what we call proof scriptures, that the power to pass gifts on died when the last apostle died.
I think Simon recognized what these guys can do. I can't do that.
Yeah,
They said,
right.
I can't do that.
Okay, well, we will pick up with verse 4 next week.
See, you leave for 2 weeks and you get a lively audience when you get back.
I like that.